Hello and welcome to this special Up.School webinar with me, Graham Brown. For the next 20 minutes, we're going to look at business ideas. Specifically, how can you as an entrepreneur validate your business ideas? And validate means know which idea you can actually build a business with and which idea is just a distraction. And we're going to do this with the help of 6 key questions and an idea checklist. And if you stick around in this webinar, I'll show you how you can get a hold of those. So, kicking off, let's start. What is the problem? Today's challenge here on this Up.School webinar is to find out how to find the right idea to build a business on. And we'll be doing that with the 6 key questions that I talked about, and we'll work through each of those here live on that checklist. Here's the 6-point Up.School validation checklist. You can get a hold of this. I'll give you the link at the end of the webinar, as well as a link to download the full presentation of this webinar free as a PDF file. So stick around for the end of that. First, a bit about me before we kick off, so you know I know what I'm talking about. I'm an entrepreneur, investor, and advisor. I've been growing my own businesses in telecoms and real estate since the late 1990s, and I exited my last business 4 years ago and enjoyed 3 years of semi-retirement, traveling around the world with my family, and then returned to Tokyo, Japan, where I'm now based to work on new projects. You know, I'm the kind of entrepreneur who sits on the beach and, I could be sitting on a tropical island and I'll be restless because my mind will be thinking about the next thing or the next project that I work on. It drives my wife nuts, but that's the curse and the blessing of being an entrepreneur. I'm not a corporate guy who's come out of the corporate world into entrepreneurialism to try it out. I live and breathe this stuff. So here are some of the projects that I work on. Up.School, which is a learning platform for entrepreneurs to get advice on growing their businesses. Upventures.io, which is an accelerator to connect startups with enterprise partners here in Asia. Voice of the Entrepreneur, founderfm.com, which is my weekly radio show for entrepreneurs, startups, and angel investors. Foundercafe.org, a network of local meetups across Asia for entrepreneurs in a cafe, informal style atmosphere where neckties are banned. And lastly, the voice that you're hearing now, grahamdbrown.com, a one-pager about who I am and how you can get in touch with me. So let's kick off. Back to today's challenge. How are we going to solve it in this webinar? All about ideas, and ideas for entrepreneurs are the seed of every successful business. But how do you get a good idea? Maybe you have too many ideas, which is a problem most entrepreneurs face, right? You've got so many ideas, they keep you up at night. You can't focus on the one idea that you can build your business on. As they say, it's like trying to herd cats, or if you're chasing too many rabbits, you end up catching none. So how do you focus on that one rabbit to catch, that one idea that you can build a business on? The flip side of that is maybe you don't have any ideas. So there's enough entrepreneurs out there who are very good at the execution side of business. So they may be strong on process, they may be strong on the engineering side, but they're not ideas people. So they need kind of ideas which they can then go ahead and construct. Where do you start? Well, what we're going to do today is we're going to look at a 6-point checklist and we're going to work through that. What this won't do is actually give you the ideas, but it will help shape the ideas that you have or give you some inspiration to, bring an idea that's kind of half formed together into an idea that you can build your business on. That's the solution that we're going to work on today. So let's get started with the 6 questions you need to ask when validating a business idea. Starting at the top, number 1, is someone else already doing it? Now, one of the things I hear a lot in business conversation is when somebody says or shares an idea with somebody else, the other person may say, "Oh, somebody's already doing that." And traditionally, that's a bad thing, because if somebody else is already doing it, it means that your idea isn't a good one. But today, it's a good sign. Forget first mover advantage. If somebody else is doing this idea already and making a business out of it and has customers who are willing to pay for that idea, what has happened has the other company, this incumbent company, has just done the market research for you. So you, as an individual entrepreneur, has saved a lot of time and money in working out whether or not people are willing to pay for that idea. The key is not to bet on a developing. Let me start that again. The key is not to bet on developing a new market. Now, some entrepreneurs have this in their head, this big vision thing, where they can go out and create this amazing thing, which could be an app or a product, and it's going to change everything. There's a lot of problems with that. One, you're dealing with customers who need to be educated, and that takes a lot of time. Look how long it took, for example, people to get used to buying stuff online. That was at least 10 years. If you're a startup, you don't have 10 years, let alone 10 weeks to educate a market. So don't bet on developing a new market. Yes, you can bet on developing a new market if your name is Elon Musk or Richard Branson or Mark Zuckerberg, because these guys can make stuff happen, not by virtue of their style of entrepreneurialism, but because of who they are. If they decide to build a hyperloop or say we're going to Mars, then they get everybody's attention. The press talks, investors knock at their doors, they get partners. It's easy for these guys compared to everyone else, but you are not them. Therefore, don't bet on developing a new market. Going back to Richard Branson as an example, where he got his start in Virgin Atlantic Airways, he didn't invent air travel. Imagine if he said, right, I'm going to invent this form of mass transportation and it's going to involve aircraft and we're going to fly across seas and across continents and we're going to have all this kind of logistical infrastructure built around it, blah, 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 all that kind of thing. If he had to do that, it would have taken his lifetime and then some for customers to get used to this idea of air travel, right? But he didn't. The story of Richard Branson and how he invented Virgin with the airlines was he was stranded somewhere in the Caribbean and he got fed up with the incumbent airline he was traveling with and grabbed a board and said to all these angry passengers, right, new airline this way, and got people on board that way. It was a personal problem that he had. But what he did, he didn't invent a new market. He simply went out to do better than everybody else in that market was already doing, right? So think about that in a way. It's much easier to copy an existing business idea and out-execute that business idea. I know it's not sexy and it's not really exciting. It's not kind of like groundbreaking, game-changing, world-changing type stuff, but that's where the money is. After all, Facebook didn't invent the social network, did it? I mean, you remember these guys, MySpace, right? MySpace were big long before Facebook was big. Everybody used MySpace first. But it's questionable whether or not Facebook would have been so successful if it wasn't for MySpace. Thanks to News Corp and all the investors that invested millions into MySpace, Facebook had a developed and educated market already. People understood what social networking was. They understood the pros and the cons. And they understood, they could use this for messaging, connection, and so on. But it was there. And after all, Google didn't invent the search engine, did it? Yahoo was well ahead, and there was Hotbot, Lycos, Excite, AltaVista, all these search engines that came before Google in the public's eye. But effectively what happened was the investors of all those companies bankrolled the market research for Google. So Google looked at what was going on, and the guys saw what wasn't working and did a better job of it. They looked at people like Yahoo and said, that's really noisy and crowded, and people don't want directories. People just want something very simple. And that was the Google proposition. And that's how they didn't bet on developing a new market. They built on an existing market and did better than the original guys. So the idea that they came out with in all these case studies was to do it better by improving the experience. So it's okay. If you have an idea and somebody else is doing it, it's okay. Look at how you can do that better. And some people say, well, how can I do that better? I'm a small company. I'm one guy, or I'm a team of 3 guys, and I'm competing against this big multinational. How can I compete with these guys? They've got marketing budgets. They've got all the relationships. They've got the products and the brand. Well, there's always a space to compete. There's always something that the incumbents aren't doing right. In particular, when you're dealing with big companies, especially today, there's always a space where you can come in and give something more personal, more dynamic, more direct, more contact. So people like dealing with people, and they don't like dealing with big faceless organizations. So if you have an idea and somebody else is already doing that, it may be an advantage to be smaller if you can deliver a more personal, humane service for the customer, right? Number 2, is this a problem that you personally face in your daily life? Now, think back to some of the examples that we looked at just there. Virgin, well, that came out of delays in travel that Richard Branson faced when he was traveling around in the Caribbean, right? Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook was an example. Well, he did that. He built Facebook because he wanted a better way to communicate with other people on campus at the time, right? He wasn't setting out to think, well, I've got to change the world. And this is a trap that a lot of ideas fall into, and the entrepreneurs with them, is that you don't need an idea that changes the world. So sometimes one of the reasons that entrepreneurs can't get started is because their idea in their mind isn't big enough. They think, well, that ain't going to change anything in the world. Like, that's not going to set the world on fire, or I can't imagine becoming a billionaire with this idea. It doesn't matter. You don't need to. You don't need an idea that changes the world. That's the wrong way to start. Okay, if you're Elon Musk and you want to go to Mars, cool. But for everybody else, the best way to go about this is to focus on a small problem, solving that small problem. And it's a small problem that people like you have in their daily life. So what small problem do you have in your daily life that you can solve, that you can then make into a business? Because other people like you may well pay for that. If you find value in that, other people will find value in that too. And that will come out of being part of an ecosystem of shared interests or ideas or beliefs or whatever. And the people around you have those interests. Let's say, for example, you're into music and you have this problem in your daily life, this pain point, as we marketers like to call it, then chances are the musician buddies that you have may also have that problem. And, you go back to music, and the genesis of the digital age has really come out of, this problem that artists had in distributing their music, So they thought, well, how can I get my music out to my fans? I don't want to go through a record label because these record labels aren't very helpful. So that was, an idea in the making. And one of the examples from my radio show, Founder FM, you take an entrepreneur like Nick Schrieffer, who was a jazz pianist, award-winning jazz pianist, touring in Asia. And he found that him and his group had problems trying to book venues. So if you're in Europe and you're trying to tour in Asia, venues aren't going to deal with you unless your name is Coldplay or Rihanna or Elton John. But if you're just little old me, or you're Nick Schrieffer and his buddies in this group, even though they may have fans and they may be popular, then it's very difficult, and this creates an issue. So that was a problem that he faced in his daily life. And that then became the foundations for his business idea, which then became the business StageLink. And StageLink is all about connecting venues with independent artists and fans. So you have this sort of triangle of this trifecta of fans who bring the artists to their cities. You have the venues who then can see, okay, right, well, we'll go with this artist because they've already got 1,000 fans here in Tokyo. And for the artist, it's great because the fans do the marketing for the artist, right? And if you're an individual artist, you don't have a lot of budget for this. So the point is, what is the problem that you face in your daily life outside of business? And how can any kind of future business idea be a solution for that? That is where you've got to start, essentially. As I like to put it, scratch your own itch. That's the best place to start with your idea, because there'll always be people like you out there. And you are your best first customer. Now, what do I mean by that is that you have to really get in deep with the customer. This whole approach to marketing requires you to understand what the idea is about at the level of emotion, right? So if you had a product, an app, for example, or you had a physical product or a service as a consultancy or whatever, you can think of all the great ideas, the great features of that app or service, but ultimately what people will buy is that emotional connection with that product. Without trying to sound too fairy, let me give you a hard and fast example. Starbucks. So Starbucks is without doubt the most successful coffee chain in the world, the most well-known. It's the most shared brand on social media, especially Instagram. The number of people taking photos, cups of coffee, it's in the millions, right? And they don't do any advertising. The reason is because Starbucks doesn't sell coffee, right? Starbucks sells social space for people to hang out and have coffee. If people were just interested in coffee, they would go to McDonald's next door, where it's sort of half price of what you're paying in Starbucks. But we're talking about emotions. People go to Starbucks, they pay twice, 3 times as much because of the social space, because Starbucks offers community. What Starbucks knows is it's marketing to a group of people who don't have a space of their own to hang out, to chill, to connect with other people, to be part of a community, or just to go and relax, or whatever it is. These spaces become less and less in the modern world, right? That's why places like Tokyo have the most profitable Starbucks franchises in the world, because there's no space, right? So it's an emotional idea. You got to get your idea down to the emotional level. So when I say you are your first best customer, I mean, the pain, the emotional drivers better than anybody else. And pain is a very powerful trigger for buying. People will buy if they fear they're being left out, if they fear they're being stupid or looking stupid, or fear whatever. Fear is a major driver. People buy phones, not necessarily to look good. Most people buy phones so they don't get left out, the latest smartphone, so they don't miss out, right? So think about it. With you as your first customer, what are the kind of pain points? What are the kind of emotional drivers? Because there will be people like you in your ecosystem who already have those and understand them. So, point number 2, this goes back to you as the customer. Is this a pain point? Is this a problem that you face yourself in your daily life? Number 3, does it make your heart beat faster? When you talk about your idea, do you think, hell yeah? Is it hell yeah, or is it nothing? Is it kind of, yeah, this is interesting? It's got to be a hell yeah. And not because this is all about, big pumping up yes speech, motivational type, Tony Robbins stuff. This is because it's really important that you feel motivated by this, because other people around you are going to feed off that energy, right? So if you're pumped by this idea, then it's going to be easier for you to win over people who may be co-founders or maybe investors, or importantly, customers, right? And a bit of advice about this, right? Don't edit your idea to please other people. Don't ever do that. Don't edit your idea to please other people. Keep true to your idea, tweak it, adapt it, but don't edit it. Don't make it more acceptable by more people. So maybe you're thinking, well, actually, I've got this pet grooming service and it's only for this kind of customer here. I might have to make this bigger, and rather than focus on Pomeranian dogs, I'm going to focus on all kinds of dogs and all kinds of cats and everything, right? Don't do it. Focus on what gets you really pumped up, because there will be people like that, like you, out there. And if you're dealing with something that's really niche and exciting, they will connect with you. And a key part of this as well, and something I've found and something I've learned through my entrepreneurial career, is people connect with you so much better when you forget the BS, right? You come off your high horse and you be honest. Sometimes when you're thinking, I might publish that post or publish that status update, right? And you kind of have that icky moment, right? Where if I hit publish, I feel really embarrassed, or, I feel like I've kind of exposed myself here. I'm vulnerable. That's what you should do. You should do that, because that's the hell yeah moment where people really connect with you emotionally, right? If you don't get juiced up about your idea, it's going to take a lot to convince customers to do likewise, right? So my advice is, don't waste time on the ideas that don't start fires, right? If this idea, think about your idea. Physically, your body is going to tell you whether or not that idea is right for you, right? Forget the logic now, because when you think about that idea, does it make your heart beat faster? It's an emotional and physical reaction to that idea. So if you've got a list of ideas, go through it and listen to your body and say, does it actually beat faster when I think about this? Does it get me excited? Point number 4. Now, the next 3 points, we're going to work through 3 specific examples. I'm going to show you tools which you can use to, really get deeper into your idea, test your idea, as well as find niches in your idea which you may not have considered, as well as put an idea to bed if it's not working, right? This is kind of, validating your assumptions here before you turn that into a product. Number 4, is there a strong search volume for this idea in the Google keyword tool? And if you haven't used the Google keyword tool, I'll show you what that is in a minute and how to use it. The key part of this is mine where the gold is. Mine where the gold is. Don't go and mine where there isn't gold, right? Even if you think that's a great idea. Mine where the gold is, because no matter how good you are at mining, no matter how passionate you are about your product, no matter how persistent you are, and all this kind of advice that tells you never give up, it doesn't matter. If there's no gold there, you ain't going to find anything. So mine where the gold is. Use a tool like Google Keyword Tool to do that. And I'll just show you how you can do that now. If you go to AdWords.Google, let me start again. AdWords.google.com/keyword planner. That's AdWords.google.com/keyword planner. Sign into that account with your Google account. And what that'll do is it'll take you to a form where the first thing you'll do is you'll see a box which will say your product or service, which you can type in when it's asking for search for new keywords, right? So just take your idea specifically. So that could be pet grooming, or it could be some kind of cycling cafe app, right? Whatever it is, just type it straight into Google. And what we're looking for here in the Google Keyword Planner is the search volume. Are there people already searching for that on Google, right? So there's 2 things that's going to show us. Firstly, if people are searching for it, it's good news because it means there's demand out there. Secondly, what are the actual user intent words that people are using, right? So somebody may type in pet grooming, but they may be typing in pet grooming because A, they may be interested in starting a pet grooming business. B, they may just be interested in how to groom their little pooch at home. Or 3, they may be interested in pet grooming, mobile pet grooming service providers, right, in their area. So we've got to kind of find what the user intent keywords are, because that's going to help you shape your idea, right? Because, you could go into this app, find a lot of demand for it, but it's not actually saying it's demand for a product or an idea like yours. It's something different, right? So let's have a look at this. Go in there, click Get Ideas, and it's going to give you a list of keyword results. So with pet grooming, we start with, for example, dog grooming at the top, and it gives you average monthly searches, which in this case is 135,000. Competition and suggested bid columns, we'll ignore those for now. That's a bit more technical. We can come back to those at a later stage. what we're looking for is longer search niches. So the longer the phrase, the more niche it is, the more specific that search is, right? So if somebody was just to type in grooming, that could be anything, right? That could be, grooming your own hair, dog grooming, horse grooming, whatever. So that's not a very indicative phrase for user intent for your idea, but somebody types in dog grooming, well, they're grooming a dog, not a cat. Somebody types in mobile dog grooming, well, they're not now interested in doing it themselves, are they? They may be interested in starting their own mobile dog grooming franchise, or they may be interested in a local business that can come and groom their pets, right? So the longer the phrase, the better. So when it comes to searching Google keyword tool for your business ideas, the key thing to take on board here is how can you kind of adjust your idea to fit what the actual user intent keyword searches are. So, you came in with this idea of dog grooming. It looks like there's an interesting amount of search volume for mobile dog grooming. Here we have 27,000 monthly searches, which is a lot for something as specific as this. We really want searches which go beyond the 1,000 mark to show any kind of regular and substantial intent. So moving on. Number 5, are people asking questions about this idea in Korra? Now, Korra is a great platform for people to ask questions, right? And why we're interested in questions is people asking questions equals problems not being solved. So if people can't find answers out there on the internet or through their friends or by going to YouTube and watching how-to videos or whatever, or they're not getting clear advice or it's very specific advice or they're embarrassed to ask, then people go to Korra and they ask questions there. And why questions are good are that questions give us both, an insight into the pain points people have with their ideas. So when people ask questions, often they give some background qualifying information, which tells us a little bit about their problem. They don't just ask a question off the bat. They give a bit of background, and that gives you an insight into the issues that people have and what's not being solved. And secondly, it also tells us if the problem is solvable, because if it's a problem that a lot of people are pitching in with answers to, then what tends to happen is they will give you links and links to service providers and somebody else who may well be trying to solve that problem out there. So it's an interesting scenario where somebody's got a problem, they can't find a solution to that problem on the internet, they go to Korra, they ask a question on Korra, somebody answers that question on Korra by giving them a link to a service provider or an app online. Now, what that then gives us an insight into is whoever is providing that solution in that answer is not connecting with the person with the problem already. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone to Korra to find the answer, right? So going back to the point, is somebody doing this already, which was the first question that we asked in the checklist. This is very insightful because it tells us, yes, somebody is doing this already, but their execution is poor. They're not getting across to the people who need to find the answer. So that gives you an insight. Why? Why are they not getting across? And that should give you some answers about how you can out-execute existing people already. So go into Korra, type in your idea in the top. You need to register for Korra, but I believe you can sign up again with your Google account. But once you've done that, it's simple enough to go in and type in your idea, in this case, pet grooming, into Korra. We're looking for what comes back in terms of search volume. It will give us some answers and it will show you questions organized by answers. We're looking for questions with the most answers. So in this case, one of the questions with the most answers is, what is the best pet grooming kit for long-haired Persian cats? Now that is very specific because it's not pet grooming. It's pet grooming kit, and it's also long-haired Persian cats. So, I mean, if your interest was long-haired Persian cats, that's great news, because already off the bat, that tells me that long-haired Persian cat owners aren't finding existing solutions to that problem. And I imagine if you've got a long-haired Persian cat, they have a bit of a problem when it comes to grooming. Their hair's everywhere, right? So look for the questions that have many answers, right? That's the indicator here when you look through Korra. Once you have a look through that, you can go in and drill down on each of the questions, get an understanding what the issues are. So, what are the challenges that long-haired Persian cat owners have? I think they mean long-haired Persian cats, the owners of long-haired Persian cats, not long-haired owners, right? So what are the owners' issues? And we're not looking for the exciting opportunistic stuff. We're looking for the pain points, the issues, the problems that they have, the stuff that they may be embarrassed by, the stuff they can't find answers to, the stuff that's frustrating, right? The stuff that causes fear or anxiety. That's a great way to build a business, is to solve that problem for people. So go in, have a look. What kind of solutions are out there? Do the research on the solutions. It'll give you some ideas about existing ideas. And also, what are they weak on? How are they not getting across? Is their website poorly set up? How is the offer? Why are people not discovering this offer? Is it not clear? And so on. So the last one is Google Trends, a not very often used tool, but very useful for understanding whether or not your idea is built on a market which is going up, i.e. increasing in volume over time. So number 6 question, does Google Trends show an increasing search volume for this idea? And the key is, don't build your business on a shrinking market. Going to Google Trends, easy enough just to type in your idea in the search box, click search, and what it will do is it will give you a chart of the search volume over time, and it's quite substantial, the time window. In this case, if you type in pet grooming, it's going to go back way beyond the last 5 years and show you what the search volume for pet grooming is. That's really insightful. I'm really interested to know, is this going up? I don't want to see a slope going down. That's bad news, because if you build a business, it's only ever going to get harder, right? But if it's going up, that's great, because that creates gaps in the market. It doesn't have to be a big upslope. And if you look at the pet grooming chart, you'll notice a cyclical chart. It seems to peak round about spring. So people are searching for pet grooming around about spring for whatever reason. I don't have a pet in this house, so I don't know why they should be searching in spring. But if you're a pet owner, you will know probably why people are searching in spring. And then it sort of drops down, and then it comes back again around fall, autumn, right? For whatever reason. Now, forget the cyclical stuff, the seasonal stuff. Focus on the meta trend, which is over the last 5 years. Is this going up? And if you look at pet grooming over the last 5 years, it is going up very slightly. But that is good news, because it's not going down. So it means even if the search volume was going up 5% a year, that's good by me. I don't want to see it going down 5% a year. That sends an alarm signal in this search process back to us, right? So is it going up? And if you go into Google Trends, you can niche it down a little bit more. At the bottom of the Google Trends search page, what you'll find is related searches. And if you click the button on the right which says rising, what that does is show you, are there any immediate trends? So these are I don't know what the criteria is for rising, but these are sort of in the short term that have come out of that search. So people are typing in pet grooming. But what's interesting around that search, one of the most popular rising trends is pet smart grooming, right? And if you drill into that, what is pet smart grooming? Well, to me, that sounds like a business name, Pet Smart Grooming. Now, Pet Smart Grooming may be one of those mobile pet grooming services that people are searching for. And now people may be searching for it by name, because they may be advertising heavily in local areas and so on. So that's a really interesting sign, because that's an evidence that people are searching for a particular solution. Now, we've gone from a situation where you can have uneducated consumers in the sense that they have a problem with their pets, and this problem sort of pops up in spring and autumn. They don't know what the solution is, to a situation where people are searching for solutions on the internet, going to places like Korra. They're not getting the answers because, they're not connecting with those companies straight off the bat. But, it's a long, convoluted process for them to find a solution on the internet. And now you've got people searching for companies by name. That's a great sign. That shows it's a market which is growing, a market where you've got educated consumers. It's a lot easier for a startup to get into this market. Go in and have a look at PetSmart Grooming. What are they doing wrong that you could do right? That's a great way to assess your idea. What can I do that these guys can't do? So if they're a large franchise or a large organization, there's going to be issues. Maybe they're not personal enough. Maybe they don't cover your area. Maybe they don't do it via a mobile app, which would be great, right? You could order this stuff. All those kind of things. So you can go in and find out what's broken with their service, because what they've done, they spend all those millions on advertising or whatever it is they've done to get out there, and they've effectively educated your customers for you. So let's wrap up. Here's the checklist that we've looked at today. The 6-point checklist. Is someone else already doing it? Is this a problem you face every day? Does it make your heart beat faster? Look at the search volume on the Google keywords. Is it substantial? Is it more than 1,000? Is it picking up the right keywords for you? Are people asking questions about this on Korra? And is it an uptrend on Google Trend? If you can answer all of those yes, then you've got the basis of a great idea to start moving forward towards the product stage. If you can't answer yes, it doesn't mean it's a no. It just means you've got to go back and refine that a little bit until you get a better result, right? And I'll show you how you can download this presentation and checklist at the end of this webinar. So let's finally look at ideas, because I think whilst we've gone through the checklist, there's one key point that I want to share with you at the end of this, and that is, don't get hung up on your idea, right? So many entrepreneurs that I know, the startups I advise, entrepreneurs that I mentor, I see this problem time and time again, is that they have an idea, or they have too many ideas, or they don't have an idea, and that stops them doing anything. And my advice to anybody in this stage is, don't wait for the right timing or the perfect idea. It's like riding a bike, right? It's so much easier to steer a moving bicycle, right? So the advice is, get on that bike and start pedaling. Okay, it may feel a little bit risky, but you remember the first time you ever rode a bike without the training wheels? That probably scared the hell out of you. But you realize then, after a little bit, it wasn't that bad. You could actually ride this thing. And then by the end of the day, you were riding around everywhere. So it's the same with ideas, right? Don't wait for the perfect idea. You're not going to learn anyway until you launch. So, you can focus everything on your idea at this stage. But until you launch, it doesn't mean anything. Your idea is meaningless. Until that idea becomes a product and you're asking people to pay money for it, it doesn't mean anything. So don't get stuck at this stage. Just spend as little possible time on the idea. Use the checklist to find an idea and move forward. Even if you're not completely confident about that idea, move forward, because a half-baked idea is enough at this step, to get going. Because what you're going to do is you're going to lead the customer and ask them for feedback rather than ask them, what do you want, right? So you've got to have what is called the product vision with your idea. So have the vision. This is my vision. I want to create a mobile pet grooming service for Pomeranians in, Orange County, whatever it is. That's my product vision. And I want to do this dressed as a clown. And I want to do this, whatever your vision is. It's got to be unique. It's got to be fun. And importantly, it's got to be something that you believe in. Like all the things we talked about is something scratching your own itch. Is it something that you believed in? Is it a problem that you face yourself? Don't go to the customer and ask them, what do you want? Don't go to people and say, what do you want? They don't know. Famously, Henry Ford said, if I had asked my customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, right? Henry Ford had to lead. He had to put the idea out there and said, this is what it is. Are you going to buy it? And people bought it. But, the first cars he produced are nothing like the future cars that Ford produced, right? But he didn't start out saying, well, I can't wait until it's got air conditioning. I can't produce this thing until it's got ABS or it's got, whatever. You just got to start with something real small and push it forward, because the sooner you get feedback, the sooner you can learn. As with all startups, your idea is going to change and evolve as the customers get involved in the process and give you feedback. So don't get precious about your ideas. I hear people say, oh, I'm in stealth mode, or I can't tell you my idea, or I'm scared to tell you my idea because you might steal it. It's BS, right? Those days are over. You've got to actively share your ideas. Don't go around telling people you're in stealth mode. Set your ideas free. That is the key here. If you've got a half-baked idea, go to somebody and say, look, I've got a half-baked idea. Help me out here, right? Buy them a cup of coffee and say, just give me some feedback. There's no harm in that. If this person trusts you, they'll give you some valuable advice, right? Don't go to the customer and say, hey, look, I'm a skateboarder, you're a skateboarder, what do you want? They don't know, right? Have some kind of leadership in this. So pick something, half-baked idea, go out and get some feedback on it and start evolving it from there. Set those ideas free. And I'm going to show you how you can download this in just a minute. You can get access to the presentation and you can get access to the 6-point idea checklist. This is it. Here's the download link. This is Up.School. We've been talking about how to validate your business ideas today. I hope that was really useful for you. I hope you found this webinar useful. It's something new that we're doing here. And, well, if we can get our ideas out there, hopefully we can get some feedback from you as well. But for now, if you did find it useful, here's the link where you can go and download this presentation free. It's www.upschool.io/webinar-ideas. That's www.upschool.io/webinar-ideas. My name's Graham Brown. Set your ideas free. Thank you.